welcome to Snow Beach, February the 26th, 2026. This time, I'd like to go to the roll calls.
Yeah, well, I will note, Mr. Chair, that Mr. Pitchokowski was requested to attend remotely to today's meeting of the Valley-Alleghany and also our remote participation rules of fiscal for his present. I don't believe he's not on yet, but we'd like to go ahead and approve his participation before we get started. Now we need to, if there's no objection.
Yeah, I've already approved it.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
I think it's the other day by email.
With that, Chair, we'll go through the roll call. Mr. Tuttle.
Here.
Mr. Nicely.
Here.
Ms. Rothman.
Here.
Chairman North.
Here.
Mr. Radford.
Here.
Mr. Wallison. Mayor Cobb.
Here.
Vice Chair Mayor Kirk.
Here.
And Mr. Holliday.
Here.
Mr. Lyles.
Here.
Mr. Stovall.
Here.
Mr. Pipes.
Here.
And for Mr. Stursay, we have Ms. Parrish.
Here.
Mr. Huber.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to move to item 3, approval of consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move for the consent.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have it. Moving on to item 4, remarks from the chair. Then. CTB Commonwealth Transportation Board met February 17th under the new Secretary of Transportation, Dick Donahue, who used to be the Deputy Secretary under the Clinton administration, to Secretary Valley-Alleghany. He also was one of the authors of the Smart Scale program years ago. And they previewed the upcoming 6-year funding program. At this time, the Commonwealth Transportation Board expects $59.6 billion for preliminary allocation. Of that large number, $607 billion is dedicated to I-81. $18.6 billion is budgeted for maintenance and operation. The maintenance fund sorely needs the money. This budget is showing an initial shortfall of $633.7 billion, of which $287.2 billion is federal sources and $346.5 million is being transferred from the construction account. Now, CTB still meets again next month, and we'll have to see how all the budget activity in Richmond works out, hopefully by March 17th, and then take a casualty report of those items that didn't pass and those items that did. And other General Assembly actions, neither the Roanoke Blacksburg Airport funding request made it out of the House and Senate money committees this past weekend. The Air Service Task Force is actively working with the airport on potential strategies to direct additional investments to ROA. Now, Senator Hidd carried 2 budget amendments. One was for $40 million for the operating improvements at the airport to the terminal, so that we can increase the number of gates and flights. The same bill was then amended but carried by Delegate Alston. $7 million was another budget amendment to do the airport study of the extension of 581. That did not pass either. And both Senator Hidd and Delegate Alston worked well together to try to make that happen. But this was not the year for that to occur. Now, from what I've been discerned, being in Richmond 3 days in early February, and along with some of the folks from BML that were there as well, we were there for VACO, is freshman delegates were not encouraged by the speaker to carry co-patron bills with Republicans. Maybe next year. But I'm going to tell you something right now. If you don't have a bill like the airport, where you have a Democrat and Republican working together on it, it's not going to happen. So the message here is we need to regroup to think that over there, sort of task. The same is true with the bill that was carried over to next year on effective tax rate. We talked to Margaret Ann Franklin and to Lily Franklin, and they're not related, but they're both friends. And they're interested in helping push that bill through next year, working with Kelly McNamara. You got to work together in order to get anything done. And then it's not always guaranteed. You also got to be quiet about things down there because they'll take you off committee in a heartbeat. That happened to Senator Marston, who didn't like the way things are running on finance. So they said, well, okay, you're not on finance anymore. So they don't give you time to explain. They just go ahead and whack you right there on the spot.
And it did the same thing to Sam Rasool from the city of Roanoke. He was on the appropriations committee. And the chairman removed him last Friday for comments that he had made. Chairman didn't like, or the speaker didn't like, so he removed him, I think, last Friday for appropriations.
No, he's been removed since January.
January. Was it? I thought it was, he left him mayor, but then waited to crossover. January.
So anyway,
Good story, though.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the support.
you know,
What do you say there? See how the rest of the meeting goes.
if you look at our scorecard, if we hadn't fared too well yet, of course, we haven't got to the back page. And we have to wait for the dust settles and see what made it, what didn't. Secondary road funding died again the second year. There might be some help on 220 corridor improvements. And funding for Blue Ridge Rising didn't make the cut either, so. That's not good. So a lot of bad news, but really it's not bad news, it's reality news. And the question is, you don't walk away and just say, well, that's it, you gotta regroup.
And so probably don't do any good to speak to the subcommittees either, because they,
No. So we'll see, some of the bills that are making it along the way could cost us more money locally, for example. Collective bargaining. If it's implemented 100% Roanoke County, our real estate rate will raise 31 cents. It'll go from $1.03 to $1.34. It costs her 48.7 billion. When I tried to speak to that bill, after waiting 4 hours, the only thing I got to say was, I'm Bill North Roanoke County Board of Supervisors. Opposed. They didn't want you to go into any detail, not even to say one sentence. The impact is. And when you speak for a bill, you got about 20 to 25 seconds. You don't have time for an epistle. I saw people speak before bills and had a minute and a half of words that were cut off in 50 seconds. And they never got to tell what the impact was. So you can't dilly-dally around when you're down there. And try to have your message together. So but we got some homework to do after they come back home. And so I look for someone to answer the question, when we go to the chamber meetings, can you tell me why the funding didn't get approved there for me? I will tell you this. And I've suggested this to several people, that we need to put some skin in the game. That skin needs to come from Roanoke City, Salem, and Roanoke County, as well as maybe Virginia Tech and Brilliant. We've got to put skin in the game to buy down the 40 billion. So they know how serious we are about wanting the 35 million. And I tried to push that idea for July 127 and it didn't work. It's too late because once they get rid of a budget limit, they can't bring it back up. It's just not gonna happen. It falls on the floor until next. That's all the comments that I think they have.
Just introduce me.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
that was one.
by the way, Linda Rockman, Buchanan District Supervisor for the beautiful county of Bonetoc. We want to welcome you here today.
thank you.
And we appreciate your coming and look forward to seeing you at all of our meetings in the future. Brandon is an active participant and we look forward to having you folks here today and
Thank you.
welcome. All right. Moving on to item 5, the Valley Metro presentation. I want to welcome Kevin Price from the Greater Roanoke Transit Company. Kevin? Check to make sure that mic's working. Sometimes it doesn't work.
That'll be good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. members of the board. Good afternoon. How's everybody? Good, good. Thank you for the opportunity to, kind of present some updates as far as what's going on with, the RVTPO Valley Metro. One good thing is, if you see the logo at the bottom of the screen, we're celebrating, well, in 2025, we celebrated 50 years of providing transit service, for the Roanoke Valley. And you'll see our logo in certain places. We'll be highlighting some employees that we have that have been there for 50 years. Imagine that. And some 40 years. So we got a lot of stories to tell. And over the next 3 or 4 months, we'll start telling those stories and you'll see those things being updated as we go. But what I thought I'd start with is a little historical description of how Valley Metro got to where it is today. For those of you who are familiar, transit didn't necessarily start as a public service. Transit started as a private interest for profit in most localities. But over time, the private operators found out that the profit margin wasn't what it needed to be. So eventually, local municipalities took it over, and in our case, it would be the city of Roanoke, and turned that system into a public service. In addition to that, the federal and state they stepped up in the form of the Urban Mass Transportation Act of 1964. And then that, for us locally, gave the birth to, in 1975, Valley Metro. Now, previous to that, Valley Metro did operate service in the form of rail cars. And if you go around to certain parts of the city, you'll see the old rail lines. And when we constructed 3rd Street Station, one of the things that they uncovered were rail ties over there off of 3rd Street. So not only did we build it, we dug up some history too. So in 2023, as you see right there, we transitioned from the old Campbell Court to the new 3rd Street Station. And then, like I said, in 2025, we celebrated 50 years of service. For those who don't know, some operating statistics for how we go about every day. 4,000 trips per day for us, which equates to a little bit over 1.4 million trips. And for those who like statistics, that equates to about 7.5 million passenger miles in a year. We operate 51 buses, and then our base service is Monday through Saturday, 5:45 to 8:45 p.m. And then one of our new services is the microtransit, what we call Metroplex, which operates after the fixed route buses pull out, and then on Sundays from 9 to 6 p.m. An operating budget of a little over about 3.5 million. To start, I'm sure you're familiar with the green and blue buses traversing through the city and city of Roanoke, Salem, Fenton. And we have a little about 30 route pairs. You can see those on the screen. Again, the operating hours for the fixed route service is 5:45 a.m. to 8:45 p.m. And then eventually the Metroplex takes over after that. In addition, we have the Smartway service. And one of the newer services is the Smartway Express. The Smartway traverses through I-81. It connects the Roanoke Valley and the New River Valley Airport, and then the certain parking rides. And a newer service is what we call the Smartway Express. And that primarily serves as a connection from the campus of Virginia Tech to ETC, the School of Medicine. And that was a request directly from the university, because primarily they were operating this service as a university service. Then they approached us to kind of take it up because, I guess they think we are the professionals to move people. I think we are. But you think we are, don't you?
Of
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of a newer service that we have. And they're both very successful. So I encourage you, if you ever want to go up to Blacksburg and you don't want to deal with 81, hop on one of the Smartway buses. It has Wi-Fi and has all the new technology that we've recently incorporated. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. This map you see here, this kind of gives an illustration of what the services, being the Smartway and Smartway Express, connect. The top left, if you see MMTC, Blacksburg Municipal Building, Hopper Hall, Pratt, and note the red being the base Smartway and the blue being the Express. As you can see, the Express does certain things that the base does not. northbound at the bottom, BTC. And then certain academic buildings on the campus of Virginia Tech, the CRC, and then life sciences. Anytime you see EOL, that means end of line. So that's where the bus goes, stops, turns around, and goes the opposite way. So as you can see, it kind of covers the university and then some places in downtown Roanoke. The next service you have is what we call the Starline Trolley. You're seeing the rubber trolley buses traversing downtown that run every 15 minutes. That connects, again, another Caribbean site to downtown Roanoke, or the market building. It's free, so if you want to try it out, connects all the dining and then the top and then Hotel Roanoke. The newest service that we have, if you're familiar with what's going in transit today, big buses don't always necessarily meet the need. And the service needs to be a little bit more personalized. And so what we came up with to kind of talk about what we need on the late night and on Sundays was called a Metroflex service. Basically, it's I have to be careful when I say this. So I won't. It picks folks up from their origin and connects them directly to their destination. For example, if you want to go to a concert at night and you live within the service area, you can call a Metroflex contractor and give them specific times and days that you want to go within the 9:45 to 12:45 a.m. On Sundays 9 to 6 from your house. They'll take you directly to your destination for $1.75. So if you want to go to a Salem Red Sox game and you live in Salem and you don't want to drive, you can call Metroflex. You can take the route bus there. And then when the game ends after 8:45, you can call for a flex trip or schedule your flex trip and takes you directly home. So this is a new idea or project that's going around in transit systems all over the country. Basically, what it serves is as a first mile, last mile kind of connection, and also for services that you want to see if there's any kind of ridership to develop. And then after a while, you may develop some fixed route, or you'll see that the curb to curb service fits, and that's something you'll want to maintain. In the future, we'll be, and I'll talk about this a bit later, we have a VMGO mobile app that will kind of integrate all these into one service. So if you're interested in trying transit, and you want to kind of stick with what you're familiar with, this is a good way to start. I'm preaching to the choir some, but it's a great service, and I suggest you try it. And some of the other technologies that we kind of introduced over the last 3 or 4 years, this is one of the first ones. It's called VMGO. It's our RTPI kind of software. It's real-time transit information. Basically, it tells you where the bus is, how many passengers on the bus, what time it'll get your stop. And then you can kind of subscribe to wherever your stop that you use every day. And it tells you where the bus is and when it's going to be there. And then eventually we'll be incorporating, like I said earlier, the Metroflex into it. And then you'll be able to do all those things in one application. Even if you don't plan to use transit, I suggest that you download the app to see how it works. Because there may be some other things on there too. And then there's a website, it's called vmgoapp.com. On that website, you can do the same activities. But on there, it also gives traffic patterns. It also says what the congestion of that particular area is. So if you don't necessarily need transit, you want to know what's going on 91, you want to know what's going on 460, that app kind of gives you some of that information. So some of the things that we've done over the last 3 or 4 years, again, I've already mentioned. 3rd Street Station, electric buses. Man, I know you're going to be here today. Your pictures in here, so that's you. Yes. The technology from the VMGO app, and then again talking about 1.8 million riders in 2025. What you see here, I'm sorry, I'm blocking some folks behind me. This is how we kind of manage the system. And the dots that you see, the arrows that you see, all the buses. This is a screenshot, so it's not live. This is what we see or our dispatch office sees. And when the dispatcher, and I wish I could, clicks on any of those arrows, and you see red, yellow, and green. Red means it's a little bit behind, yellow means it's getting close, green means it's on schedule, gray means it's not in service. So we manage the system, we know as far as headways and gaps, how many people are on the bus. Little secret, each bus has Wi-Fi, it's Wi-Fi enabled. That's how we get the data through the cellular network. So this is what our dispatchers see as they manage the system. I said earlier that we incorporated some electric buses into our fleet, and this is the management screen for the electric buses. As you can see, it talks about the charging, the current state of charge. We kind of monitor that. If you're familiar with electric buses or electric vehicles in general, they're very temperature sensitive. So if it's below 60 degrees, there's a certain battery range or life that they have. If it's above 60 degrees, it's better. So we monitor the buses and kind of talk about how they're doing over the day. And to date, the electric buses can run all day. So they get about 220 miles per charge, which is pretty good. Our average route is about 200 miles all day for 15 hours. This next slide talks about the emissions. What emissions do the buses save or prevent over their day or whatever is going on? So you see the three buses, you see the measurement of what emissions that they have saved over the period. This period is from July to this past February, or February. And it kind of talks about if anyone wants this information, just to see if they're doing a study, if they're doing some more additional information of what are those buses actually doing as compared to a diesel bus. This information that we have kind of gives an idea of what they're doing out there on the road. So in closing, some future projects that we'll be working on. We'll be looking to doing some mobile ticketing where passengers won't need cash to use the bus. They'll also be able to purchase those passes on the VMGO app and some additional amenities. And we have a vision plan that talks about satellite transfer centers around the region that we'll be looking into that. And then the potential for expanding the microtransit service to early in the mornings and maybe some other jurisdictions want to participate with that. So that's kind of the state of the transit as we are today. We've been fairly busy over the last 5 years. And we're probably going to have some more projects in the pipeline in addition to these as transit evolves with the needs of the community. So thank you. Any questions? Comments, suggestions?
Good presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Very good.
Can I just add something? I'm the president of the Greater Roanoke Transit Company Board. I first want to thank Kevin for the presentation and the ongoing work related to transit. One of the things he alluded to was with Metroplex, the microtransit. It's a real opportunity to pilot expansion in different ways throughout the region. So I would really encourage us to think about that. It's especially beneficial to employers. We've seen a pretty significant increase in employees who are able to access not only fixed route, but to use microtransit to get home from work or to work because of the additional hours. And instead of using an Uber or a higher cost mechanism to get home, they're paying $1.75 each way. So I think it's really cost effective and a good thing for us to continue to explore as a region. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Osborne.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I saw, I think there was a gross number of $135 million or so as your budget. Maybe
I hope not.
So I'm curious if you have any, additional information you could share on where that funding comes from.
Yes, sir. What makes up the 13.5? First of all, it's fair revenue. Then local subsidies, state and federal. One thing about transit is it talks about what we call fare box recovery, meaning there's a certain percentage for each route that the fare box pays the cost of, or basically matches the expenses. Now, on average, our fare box recovery is about 15 to 20% of the expense. Outside of that, as far as the federal register, whatever's allocated through 5307, which is the federal side of the house, it's based on hours, miles, revenue hours, how many folks you transport, and that's pretty much a fix based on what they designated the federal register. The state is based on what your operating expenses are, up to 30%. So that kind of gives kind of an idea, and also it's contingent on what the CTV kind of approves what it does as far as transit.
Well, I know, when STBG first started, well, that sort of first year took away a source of funding. Next year you came back in and you got multi-year funding. And that was largely for, I think, vehicle replacement. I'm just curious, are you still getting funds that way, or has that been replaced in a different?
Well, when we came in for regional monies, at that time, the Department of Rail and Public Transportation did not provide capital or buses for large urban systems.
Right.
Well, that census changed since they've converted to the merit system.
Okay.
So the local burden for any capital outlays is about 4% based on if you're a major impact or it's a minor project, whatever the case may be. But as far as for rolling stock, it's 68, 28, 4 as far as the formulas for 68% state, 28% federal, and 4% local. So that's kind of how it's morphed over the years since.
Right. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, so the Metroplex, you're saying you use that with the DRPT to get funding for Metroplex?
well, the Metroplex started with the City of Roanoke offer project, which was 100% funded by that project. So what we're doing now is a pilot project with the state of Virginia, an 80-20 demonstration pilot for 3 years. So the Metroplex currently is being paid for by a state grant of 80-20. After that 80-20, that's when we get into, okay, what are we going to do next? And historically, the next step is what's called a TRIP grant, or a grant of regional significance, and where you go in and get another 5 year of 80-20, and then eventually in year 5, it goes back to 20%. 20% grant funded. So we got some time, but we're getting to the point where we need to see if we're going to incorporate and how we're going to incorporate it. Because one of the other aspects of the Metroplex is we didn't necessarily do it to say Metroplex is the final answer. We did it to talk about, okay, what kind of fixture and budget? And we found out that there is a good place where we can combine those two things. Where a fixed route bus stops, a Metroplex smaller vehicle, which is operated by the smaller vehicle, can go and be a little bit more personal to the person that wants to ride the bus. And there are ways we kind of make things work over time as far as how we incorporate Metroplex permanently into what we do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions to Kevin? Thank you very much. Yes, very good. Okay, moving on to item 6 on the agenda, it's the FY 27-28 transportation alternative set aside program allocations. Chair recognizes Al and Annette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A little shorter than Mr. Frank.
So I was long-winded.
So, hello, everyone. The first item that I will be discussing today is the FY 27-28 Transportation Alternatives Program. So, the Transportation Alternatives Program, this round started last fall. And at the August RVTPO Policy Board meeting, there was a resolution of endorsement for these 2 projects. And then these 2 projects went off into the VDOT pipeline, of reviewing and scoring. And the City of Salem, the West Roanoke River Greenway, that's mouthful, Middle Lane Connector project was scored and was ranked #1 in the district and #4 statewide. So that was wonderful. And then the City of Roanoke had submitted the Salem Turnpike curb, gutter, and sidewalk, 36th Street to Westwood Boulevard. And that was reviewed and screened out on a technicality for supporting documents. But we had, since then, we have shared this information with the TTC members and worked with VDOT. And the TTC members agreed to support the City of Roanoke in resubmitting this project once the required materials are submitted. So And another thing to note for this item, that Dr. Raven Smith, our CTB member representative, is financially supporting the West Roanoke River Greenway Mill Lane Connector, which is presented on the screen. And he is contributing $258,524 to this project. And I know all partners are thankful for this support.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Allison? Not, we'll need approval of the resolution of roll call. Thank you, Allison.
Move that we approve the resolution.
Second.
Do I have a motion?
Second. Thank you.
Mr. Tuck,
Yes.
Mr. Nicely,
Yes.
Ms. Rotman,
Yes.
Mr. House on.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair North,
Yes.
Mr. Radford. Yes. Mr. Mollison.
Yes.
Mayor Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Turk,
Yes.
Mr. Holiday. Yes. Mr. Wiles,
Yes.
Mr. Stovall,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Parrish,
Yes.
Mr. Huber,
Yes.
and Mr. King.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, item 7 is smart scale endorsement applications recommendation, pages 39 through 56. Chair recognizes Allison again.
So this item, we developed a very. Oops. Sorry. So this item is the FY 20 smart scale endorsement. So a little bit of background about this. The last couple of months, we had distributed communication about endorsements for the next round of smart scale. And from that effort, we received 5 completed applications for endorsement. And the 5 applications are the following. I'm going to read through them briefly. So the City of Roanoke, Melrose Avenue, Orange Avenue Project Pipeline. The City of Roanoke, Williamson Road, Liberty Road, signalized intersection improvement. And the City of Roanoke, Campbell Avenue Pedestrian Safety Project. And then 2 from Roanoke County, Peters Creek Road, Williamson Road Safety Improvements, and then the Route 419 Multimodal Safety Improvements, Starkey Road to Colonial Avenue. So from this endorsement, we asked the people that submitted the applications to provide information about, project readiness, and then if the project is within some of our main core documents. So this is a table just outlining all of that information. I won't go through all of it because that's a lot, but just to show that, some of the questions, is it in the long range plan? So some of them are, some of them are not. Is it in the SEDS or TED, the most recent adopted? And some are and some are not. Does the project have a cost estimate? Same thing, some do, some don't, some not yet. And then are there planned leverage on the project? Currently, 3 of these projects are requesting leverage, which happen to be the 3 city projects. And then the thing that really makes the biggest difference is, does it serve corridor statewide significance or regional network? And they all do. So that is the highlight of this information from the endorsement forms. So from the TTC meeting, we presented this information to them. And because, as you might have seen in the first one, the city actually ranked, the city of Roanoke ranked their priorities. And based on that information, it seemed, based on the applications that we received, that it would make the most sense to move forward with the top 2 from the city of Roanoke and the top 2 from Roanoke County to be in the RVTPO application slots. And that leaves the 3rd ranked project from the city of Roanoke to be in the RVRC application slots. And we did not see any complete requests for the RVRC for application slots. So that is why that is the recommendation. I do know that there has been a discussion about this item, and if we need further discussion, we can. So I know there's some other projects coming in the pipeline potentially, so I didn't know if this was the time to discuss that or not.
Hey, thank you. I think we do have some people who want to make a comment. The first, Ken, let me ask you something. Well, people thinking about that. Dr. Smoot and I talked the other day, and I want to amend this item to support a letter to Dr. Smoot on ranking projects in in our district, not against Northern Virginia congestion, but against district projects. And so I would like to add to this, if I have a motion and a second after I make the motion, to support efforts to seek approval of the CTB to change the scoring on congestion in our district against other projects in the district and not against projects in the Commonwealth of Virginia and other districts. Because one project last year, for example, didn't fare so well because it got compared to Northern Virginia or other districts where there really is truly high congestion. And so this was one of the, I think, now Hollow projects, for example. And so there may be other projects in the future, and if we can get this changed now, it will help us going forward in some of our scoring at smart scale. So in addition to what's here, I make a motion that we send a letter to Dr. Smoot supporting changing of the scoring methodology on congestion to include projects in our district and not projects in other VDOT districts.
Second that.
So,
All in favor?
can I ask a question?
You can.
Okay.
Can
May I ask?
Say,
Mr. Chair. So if this is done for, you're talking about within the Salem district,
Talking about any projects we file in this area here.
within the Salem district.
Salem district.
Right.
RVTPO or
So
TPO.
would this apply to all projects within the Salem district or just when you say just our projects?
No, to all projects. So the projects in the Salem district are weighed against projects in the Salem district and not against other areas.
That's right.
He has to take this to the CTB in March, and I thought a letter of support to him with a copy to Mr. King would be beneficial so that he could indicate it's not his ask, it's the ask of the bodies of the TPO here.
And they may not agree to do it, but.
Yeah, they may not.
But right,
That's
but
the really-
I can anticipate, since we don't always fare as well also in the Salem district, which I think is part of the reason for this request. I think we could anticipate some resistance from other jurisdictions if we're not
Well, we won't know till
including
he
everything.
tries in March.
Right, I just wanted clarification on what we were asking.
So,
What we're at.
so to speak to this just real briefly, so make sure everyone understands the mechanics of, I think, what is being suggested here. Is that in each round of smart scale, the score for any given factor of the various, safety, congestion, the various factors within smart scale are based on the application within the Commonwealth overall that was the top ranked, the top scoring in that category. We've oftentimes made reference to that in terms of like height. If we were to all get scores based on our height, Michael Gray would score quite well, with his height. Now, what happens is, let's think about that with congestion. In Northern Virginia, the score for congestion would likely be Northern Virginia or Hampton Roads or some places very, very congested. And in many times, the congestion is so much greater than what it is in, say, for instance, many parts of the Salem district, that particular category for congestion, quote, kind of loses, it gets watered down, right? Because it's so much, so much less than that top tier project score. So relative to that top tier, you end up getting a very, very small percentage. However, if you were to say, okay, we're not going to try to measure that with across the state, but we're just going to do, how does it for the district grant allocation funds, if you were to measure that simply within the district. So it would be the equivalent of if Michael's from Northern Virginia, he leaves room, my score gets better. Because now I'm better measure of height amongst the group than in comparison with the top,
You
right?
could always score higher. You're his boss.
But, and I don't mean to pick on Michael, just using a good analogy here. But so that's the same thing that's going on with these various scores, especially when it gets into areas of measuring congestion and things that have a lot of urban density kind of elements to them. Because we have some parts of the Commonwealth that are just so dense, you know, that it kind of washes out those measures, those other measures within smart scale. Now, you know, so there are, well, does that change the factors? I get to some degree it would, and you know, is that going to be beneficial to some? It might, to some it may not. And I don't know that we've got a lot of, you know, we don't have a lot of experience. We have looked at it that way before, but that's what's being discussed, just to try to make sure people understood the reference that Mr. North just spoke there. So
Thank you for that colorful explanation there. Any questions? We have a motion and a second on the amended item for item 7. Does everyone approve that? Those say aye, those opposing nay.
and one abstention, sir. That would be one I would need to abstain.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Virginia, so that's not bad.
That's good. That's the microphones, I hear everybody. Good. Anyhow, let's go ahead now and consider the recommendations that Allison put forth. And we'll need a motion and a second on that before we take a vote. Is there a motion on the items that Allison has put forth?
So
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on motion? Do you have some discussion, Mr. King?
well, this may not be the place to place this, depends on how you work, how the board would elect to try to handle this. I did simply want to make everyone aware of the fact that the Commonwealth Transportation Board at their last meeting, in their work session, the Secretary Donahue discussed a potential change to how the high priority applications might be viewed. In order to be eligible for the high priority, you have to be on the corridor statewide significance. You have to have a V-Trans need that then your project is actually improving in some fashion. And then the other characteristic is it has to have certain design elements that are required. So it had to be either a widening or an interchange improvement. It had to be something of a larger scale, if you will, of what is being improved. So it wouldn't be eligible, for instance, for simply a turn lane, you know, at any given location, because that's not a design element that would have been eligible. The Secretary introduced the concept that perhaps alternative intersections, like you've seen us talk about with arc cuts or through cuts, you know, where we're trying to strategically utilize the time of a given intersection or to limit certain movements to improve safety, but they call those alternative intersections. If it has an alternative intersection element, then the Secretary had proposed that perhaps should be one of those design elements that would also be eligible to make a project capable to compete in the high priority pot. They did not act on that at their meeting, but they typically, when you have a work session, one session of the meeting, usually it's in their next meeting that they would take that forward and take some action. So I would not be surprised to see that on the action agenda for the next meeting, you know, for consideration by the board, and that possibly being a change, which I think the localities, folks that have worked to try to identify the possible projects for application, and certainly Michael Gray and Anthony Ford team on my staff that work with that planning process. There wasn't a lot of projects identified as being eligible for to be considered for the high priority pot, because we just didn't have that many locations where we were, quote, proposing a widening of a roadway or improving a whole interchange area. But if you get to this element of an alternative intersection, we do have, you know, some either prior applications and prior rounds or potentially elements of some of the project studies that have been going on for this round that might be eligible then for consideration in competition in the statewide high priority pot, if they open up this opportunity for it to be eligible for alternative intersections. With that in mind, you have the regional commission, the PDC arm of this group has the ability to put in 4 applications. Right now, it is only represented as having 1 on that list. If this change occurs next month, you would potentially have projects that could be applied for that could then compete in that high priority pot. You'd have 3 more available slots to fill in some projects. And I wanted to share that with the board with the thought that this is certainly timely. It's going to be tight because the pre-applications are due in April, the 1st of April. And, we're here right at the cusp of March, so it's a very short timetable. But I wanted to raise this, Mr. Chair, as a question, just as an informational item and the thought of, would the board want to entertain some fashion of being poised to add projects to that list that would be perhaps of that type of the alternative intersections that would meet that eligibility. Because I do think it's one of those, if you have 3 slots you don't apply for, that old adage, you miss 100% of the shots you don't shoot. Well, don't know how competitive the projects necessarily will be, but the only way for them to be considered is to be added as a possible applicant.
So we're putting that forth as a motion to reopen the candidate projects. Is that what you're?
Well, I was doing it more from a standpoint of informing, and I do think, I think we'll have to work with the TPO staff, the PDC staff really, which I guess we're here in one room with the same group, to figure out the mechanics of how we make that work. But I do think that would be a good opportunity for us to see if there's a way through which to do it. And I haven't had a chance to think through how the timing of the various meetings and how that process works. But the big thing is the locality has to file. Anthony, help me out, or Michael, the requirements at the pre-application stage would be that it's actually in the system from the applying entity, correct? So if resolutions from the locality or from the PDC or others need to be, they don't have to be in place by April 1, but they would have to follow after the applicant enters it into the system. So I think the staff would simply have to have, the staff of the PDC would simply have to have enough direction from the appropriate body to identify those as desired applicants within that round.
Okay,
Mr. Chair. So Ken, is this the time that I would want to bring up that Peters Creek would be eligible for an HPP with a roundabout?
Roundabout is an alternative intersection, and Peters Creek at Williamson is a part of a regional network, and it does meet a V-Trans need. So I think that would be a project like we were talking about.
So we could use that to fill one of those slots.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. So I would like to.
You would like to reopen
Yes.
HPP candidate projects?
Right. And at Peters Creek pools for potential roundabout.
I wonder, Mr. Chair, so right now, I think if I'm understanding Mr. King, that's the rules at the moment until the CTV makes that decision. So I think the action before the board today is to approve the current endorsements, maybe contingent on a willingness to reopen should the CTV change their rules for the March meeting, consider addition. Although this body wouldn't consider them at that point, they would go through the regional commission. So this is endorsing the TPO recommendation, understanding that some TPO localities could potentially submit a project and those open 3 slots at the PDC level should the rules change. Did I summarize that correctly?
I think so. I think given the timing, my general thought would be, I hesitated to bring it up while we were in the middle of the motion, so this may not have been the right place for me to have confused that resolution that was getting ready to go forward. But I just wanted to inform before we took the action. And so, but my general thought, Jeremy, would be that perhaps the action would be one that would say that the TPO would certainly encourage the PDC to reopen or leave open for some period of time the opportunity for additional applications of projects that would be eligible if the CTV moves forward with the action that they had proposed for consideration. And so that way you can go ahead and kind of gather them up with the assumption that if it doesn't get approved, we don't have any applications to advance. Right. So but if it does get approved, then we would have some applications that could go in. So if we took the action to say that we're going to open it up to receive applications of this type, in the event that, the CTV approves this proposed action or eligibility, and that then those applications would be added, in coordination with the PDC. And the trick is, of course, deciding which of those projects are the three that get selected by the PDC. And then when the PDC meets in order to make that choice of the three, to then direct staff to enter those into the pre-application system. And then, so that's the logistics I almost have to turn to your staff on to figure out when's the next meeting of the PDC and how might you have some window of opening for consideration of projects to be considered by the PDC.
And I wonder, Alton, today's commission meeting, we're looking at the endorsements for the
Yes.
PDC smart scale project. So maybe what we can do is the motion on the table to approve the TPOs can just remain as it's been made, and we can approve that slate of projects this afternoon, an hour and a half or so, where we're looking at these at the PDC level. And consider that endorsement. We can look at that contingency have a possibility based on the CTV actions. So it just pulls that there. We're doing very similar action this afternoon to what this body is looking at.
This body can endorse the idea, if it's been endorsed by the TPO, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So let's do this, first of all,
Let me make a separate motion.
let's do this, let's go here, clear the slate. Put motion and second on. And, all those in favor of approving item 7 as also amended for a letter of support to Dr. Smoot, as we mentioned earlier, say aye.
Aye.
All those don't approve, say nay. Okay, that motion stands approved. Now, if you want to entertain a motion separately.
Sure.
that's
Sure.
really where it
And so the way we've submitted the Peters Creek, Williamson Road, we want to move it to the HPP eligible because it's according to VDOT, it's an innovative intersection. It will reduce the cost of the project. So we would want to reopen the ability to switch that and apply for the HPP.
subject to the CTP approval.
Correct.
That March 2nd. Questions or discussions on the motion? Thank you, Ken, for your explanation.
Can I
All
have
those in favor say aye. What's that?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand, so. We are going to move forward with this
Yes.
at right
That's been
now.
approved.
Right.
And then if the changes are approved from the CTB, then you want the Williamson Road. Peters Creek to be in the TPO.
The commission.
Okay, all right,
We're gonna take that up with the commission.
okay, all right,
All this body did was just endorse that concept.
great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, suggest, and certainly, help me if this, Ms. Bradford, this doesn't fit, but perhaps an amendment or an alternative would be that this body encourage the PDC, in anticipation of the potential approval of the CTV that would allow alternative intersections to be, create a project eligibility that creates an opportunity that they open up, work with your staff, Holmes, to open up a short period of a week to receive applications from any localities within the service area that would want alternative intersection type projects to be considered for those 3 slots. And then be poised in the March meeting of the PDC to make a ruling and selection of which 3 those might be. But Mr. Brad,
But we still gotta wait for the date, which I don't know. Is it March 17th when the CTB meets?
the CTB will meet in March.
They're gonna meet after all these other events.
Right, what I would suggest is that the PDC open that up now in anticipation of that CTB potential or likely approval of that change. Because then, if you wait until after the CTV is taken action, you're not gonna have another meeting before you get to April 1st, and you'll have missed the window for the pre-application. So it's the,
Sure. That sounds better. Yeah, I'll amend the motion.
You've made the motion to allow for applications to be received by when? Our
To
state.
encourage, well, I apologize.
For
To
discussion.
encourage the PDC.
to encourage the PDC to open up.
Reach to open PDC applications. To.
Reach back there and lock that window so somebody don't decide to jump out of it. Pull it in.
Does everyone understand the motion? Everyone have any questions? Do I have a motion to amend the motion and a second? He's made the motion, do I have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Now, I have a
You gotta
clarified.
be kidding me.
No, the motion is great. We support the motion. I think this is just a clarifying question from VDOT on the eligibility. So if the PDC goes along with this motion of encouragement and goes ahead and opens this up for the localities and the locality staff in the room, you're saying that the change would be any alternative intersection, regardless of the location, is HPP eligible? Or it still has to meet the other two?
Still has to be on a corridor statewide significance, still has to meet a V-Trans need. It still has to be making an improvement that addresses that need. It says that previously, the only design elements that could be applied for were widenings and interchange improvements. This adds in the ability for one of those treatments to be an alternative intersection, which we have more alternative intersection kind of concepts out there than we have roadway widenings and interchanges, right? So it opens up some new opportunities for applications.
That's very helpful to at least one staff member in the room.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Cody, have you finished the mayor?
I'm very finished, sir. Thank you.
You are?
Yeah, just for further clarification, is there a sort of an expectation that a project might fare better under the statewide significance versus the highest and best use? Or the not highest best use?
There is a project, Peters Creek and Williams Road.
So I do think there are projects that have been applied for that may have multiple elements or a scope that is a certain length that might include an intersection that is an alternative intersection. And so the opportunities would potentially be there, or instead of applying for the entire project, to apply for just the intersection improvement as an example, or some variation of that at the PDC level. What does happen is at some point, you remember last year with the round we had 3 projects that were funded with district grant money, and then we ran out of money. There were no more applications. Any project that is eligible for the high priority pot, and that would be projects that are recommended by the TPO or the PDC and meet that criteria we talked about, which right now is limited solely to widenings and interchange improvements. So we don't have many of those, but if it includes alternative intersections, then any of the projects that might have been submitted by the locale, by the PDCs and TPOs that aren't successful in the district, they can compete in the statewide. And if they are of a pretty small scale, they could certainly be competitive. Small scale projects are very competitive. And so you don't know whether or not that horse will win the race, but the horse will be in the race.
I guess what I was trying to understand is, since we started out with 5 projects and we only submitted 4, so we ranked them and put one in the our PDC category. If we make the decision to move one of the 4 out of that category, are we going to want to move another one in? In other words, is there a corollary to your motion to take it out of one to put another one back in? And it seems to me that's largely based on where we think it'll have the most success, but. So I'm just asking that to try to get an understanding.
Sure. So that any project that is applied for by a locality is eligible for the district grant pot and the high priority pot. So a project, Mr. North Bradford, that's submitted by Roanoke County for, Peters Creek and Williams as an example. If it's not successful at the district grant, it'll already be in the running in the high priority. The potential might be, though, and that's what I thought might be what Mr. Bradford's talking about, is there could be that the project they've applied for at the district grant may have more elements and be of a larger scale. You could submit from the PDC a smaller scale intersection specific to the innovative intersection, and it would likely be eligible and potentially be able to compete, maybe more competitively if it was a smaller scale targeted improvement. So I think that both of those opportunities are there. The key point that I wanted to raise is this is a late stage change that the CTB may make. And if we don't lean forward and look at that possibility, by the time that action is taken by the CTV, you won't have time to execute. And we'll leave ourselves with 3 open application slots that we didn't take advantage of. And I'm just trying to encourage us to, try to take advantage of every opportunity for the application if we can. And in whatever localities we can, so.
Okay, that answer your question. Anyone else got any more questions before we move on? Don't worry, we'll keep you straight. We apologize for all that verbiage that derailed your motion, but we got through it. Thank you very much. Let's move on. And thank you everyone for that discussion. Let's move on to item 8, smart scale round 6 findings. I asked staff to come up with the recommendations and suggestions. Because round 6, we want to try to learn from accident. We increase our chances of round 7. So go ahead, Allison.
Okay. I know, Mr. Pink just stole my thunder on some of that on the next slide, so I won't repeat it now, but you're the expert. So I just wanted to give some background. I know this has been going on a long time, but Roanoke County had conducted a county focused smart scale round 6 analysis. And the main things from that, they discussed the area typology, the criteria factor weightings, and then something that I thought was really interesting as I was going through this exercise, looking at potential success across categories. And then they also had raising concerns around project locations and then scoring in relation to like the RVTPO urbanized area and boundary. So hold on, I'll finish. Okay, and then the team noted that the minimal impact of leveraging other applications due to the total project cost of districts and statewide. So these sentiments are something that I've seen. I've been reviewing other people's other planning commissions and TPO meetings to see similar sentiments that they had gleaned from their round 6 findings. But I will say that this topic, talking about the relation to scoring and criteria of the typology area and the urbanized area and boundary, is something that a couple of people have brought up in some meetings that I've been. And that's certainly something that people have been talking about, where you're really close to the urbanized area or you're just right out of the boundary, and like how that, you're just right there at it. So that was the experience that they had, especially with the Down Hollow project. And then we had Ms. Brooke Jackson from OIP, and she presented a Smart Scale Round 6 update. And these were the highlights that we were able to have from that presentation. So from those, she really emphasized focusing on the construction district priority locations 1 and 2, and then value engineering solutions, partnerships with cost estimate preparation and focus on smaller cost projects. And then the sentiment was that the amount of the funding requested is, what needs to be looked at versus the percentage of leverage placed on the project. So if the project is really expensive, you might not be able to apply the amount of leverage that really would make an impact on the total cost of the project. And then connection to the BEDP sites, and then considering area type weighting. From this, we also had heard that Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission just recently changed their PDC to a different weighting type. And I know that's a topic that we've discussed in certain areas in our area. So that's something that I'm interested in seeing how TJPDC comes out with their scores for this upcoming round with their new weighting typology. So this is a lot of information. Some of this is what Mr. King said. So from all of this information and from reviewing, technical guides and all the things, there really was 4 topics that rose to the top. And I think this is just reiterating what Ms. Jackson said. But readiness, I went back the last couple of rounds and saw that we have drastically statewide decreased the number of applications. I would look back at like round 1 and round 2, there's hundreds in the district. I was like, wow, which, it's fundamentally changed over the years, but readiness is really important. And I think that is something that has been identified. And then there's also been developed readiness gates, which I think could be helpful, if, you know, you meet the 3 readiness gates. To keep on track with realistic timelines, and then ensuring that we have like the materials needed to be successful for the application. So then the next thing, I know congestion mitigation, is something that I know that a lot of our partners here have been really interested in and wanting to better understand or improve the factor or how it can be improved to actually support us within our typology weighting. And I know that might have been what we were supposed to talk about and what we started talking about in the last item. But I think from, especially from the congestion standpoint, it seems like, there's opportunity for improvement or, trying to better understand how that can help us, in our areas. And then land use, this being treated as a multiplier where it is for, to the benefits for, rather than as a typical weighting factor, some with other things. So, try and figure out, you know, land use and understand how to really emphasize that with the existing criteria that we have. And then the last one, which Mr. King talked about, the HVP versus TGP funding sequences. So I won't reiterate that, but I will highlight that I know a lot of us were curious about how the former step 2 district-wide HVP allocations being eliminated starting in the last round. So now, but HPP funds are now distributed based on statewide project rankings, rather than DGP funds are allocated, increasing competition and emphasizing corridor significance, documentation quality, and benefit cost for. So that was a lot. I know it was a lot. But from that, we just wanted to give general recommendations. I know we're later to the game because people already know what they want to apply to at this point. But from this, it's really important to avoid single strength applications. So trying to make things that hit multiple criteria would be really important. And then location matters. So highlighting that ensuring that projects are along the corridor statewide significance or regional networks, and that they are meeting V-Trans needs, and then connections to VDP sites, and then cost matters. So we learned in round 6 that the cost of project is the bigger factor than the amount of leverage versus the project. If projects are very expensive, when able to phase or split projects into smaller sections to break down the cost, which can help the benefits for it. So that is all that I have for that item.
Thank you. This is a good tool to hold on to. Having so many projects and you can try to submit some after made that motion to reopen that high priority project. For this. One thing that I have Jeremy looked into is sites like Wells Fargo, Elbit that are expanding, that are supported by the state of Virginia with some financial support. Do they qualify if there was any work to be done in that corridor? Because they're established facilities, but they're expanding. And so I think VEDP has sites that are new sites. And so if you are going to do some projects close to those, you get a high score for those. And so the question is, can we amend the rules to apply to existing plants that are expanded?
Yeah, I think 60, the VDOT folks can correct me, but I think 60% of the mean economic development score is tied into tiered sites, site visits, and investments from multiple sources, which is important, but very much associated with existing, you know, Woodhaven, like greenfield sites. That doesn't capture is, as you know, Mr. Chair North mentioned, the Wells Fargo at 1,000 jobs a month biggest job announcements our regions have seen, and none of those things are factored into the additional traffic that might be generated. I know we don't have projects necessary, but just as an example, the expansions and redevelopments are not captured in that current portion of that economic development score. Previous, that was more of a storytelling, and now it's very much tied into EDP's Virginia Stand map. So we've reached out, we're trying to have a discussion with EDP's real estate section to talk about either making sure we understand the implications or advocate for changes of those, since our region, our opportunity for expansions and redevelopments may be greater than our opportunity for new sites at the moment. So that potentially puts us in a disadvantage. That's a piece that's kind of outside of, the CTB's purview. That's really in
Right.
BDP's.
Exactly.
wheelhouse.
Yeah, so we got trying to get clarification on that. We're gonna follow up. Good deal. Okay, so we don't need any action on small scale findings. Thank you very much. You did a good job of pulling that together on short notice. Appreciate it.
No, it's not as good as Roanoke County, so that is my goal.
Oh, it's actually. Megan told me so. Number 9. FY 27 Unified Work Program request, page 61. Allison, you can't sit down yet.
No, never. Okay, so this is an update of the projects that we have going on. So for, let's see, was it January, February, we received work program requests from our members, you all, and staff. And I wanted to, I'll highlight those in a second, but from this last year, these are some of our ongoing projects or things that we are going to be moving into the next fiscal year. So hopefully some of these projects will be coming off the list very soon, and some of them are just reoccurring ones. So, but I just wanted to highlight that we're working on stuff. But I was really glad to see this year that we had received a significant amount of requests compared to last couple of years at least. And I'll just run through them really quickly. But these are, okay, so the town of Denton requested a transit connectivity study. And town of Denton also requested a LEP, Vineyard Road Pedestrian Safety Improvement PE support. City of Salem, small area plan for Epperson Drive corridor. City of Salem Railway Stop Study. And then our Roanoke County had requested RVTPO smart scale typology review. And then the city of Roanoke is for assisting the department division with their Vision Zero implementation strategies. So.
Okay, any questions on this list? Thank you very much for that update. Else. Item 10, other business. Any other business come before the CPO today? And we haven't already started for the previous items. Okay. There being none, move on to item 11, comment period by RVTPO policy board members and or the public. Do you have anybody in the public? That's the tell me. Anyone on the policy board wants to speak? Thank you. Going once, twice. And let's move to item 12, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sure. See you next time.
If you want to say it down.
Wow, what did it mean?